All right, it is that time. We are updating my MLB Trade Value Rankings. I try to do this a couple times a year. We haven't had an update since last trade deadline. So the last video I put out, you can check that out if you want, was July 2025, right around the trade deadline. So it's time for an update. And so we are going to be ranking all the players in the MLB based on their trade value. If you haven't seen a video like this, it's similar to other trade value rankings. I've done an NBA one. I just put that out, I think last month. So if you want to check out an NBA trade value, we're going to be doing the same thing with MLB players. So which players have the most trade value? It'll make sense if you haven't seen one before. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of players to go through. So this is going to be a lot. So let's jump right in. Let me bring up the rules really quick, like we always do. I'll just go through these quickly. Contracts and age matter. It's not just ability. We're not just ranking the best players. We are ranking the best players based on trade value. So all of those things are a factor. The difference with MLB compared to the NBA is there's no salary cap, or at least as of 2026, as we're recording this, there's no salary cap. So yes, contract value matters. You know, if you're paying someone $200 million, that's definitely different than $100 million. But if you have a really good player that's being paid $200 million, that's fine because there's no cap. And so as long as you're getting a good player, I don't think that is as much of a factor. So I think the length of the contract certainly matters. Contract value matters as well, how much you're being paid, but I think it's slightly less in the MLB. Trades are considered in a vacuum. Team needs aren't a factor. So if a team already has a second baseman, they're not being like, oh, well, that's a factor in these rankings. No, it's just all in a vacuum. And then this is based on value. So 1-for-1 trades, basically which team says no first. So if I put two players up, a lot of the times, yeah, both teams might say no, but who says no first? Can we figure out the difference? Last rule that I don't have on there is let's have fun with it. I say this during every trade value video. This is for fun. There's no right answer. There are wrong answers, probably, but there's really no right answer. There's going to be a lot of players in the mix, a lot of players we talk about. There's no right answers. If you definitely disagree with one, you can put it down in the comments, but let's just have fun with it. Let's be respectful and have fun in this just inherently silly exercise that I still like to do every single year. So with those rules, let's start talking players. And I'm going to throw up a list of, let's see, I got 63 players that I'm going to just call honorable mentions. It's not a super comprehensive list. It's not ranked at all. These are just 63 players in alphabetical order of just names that were in consideration. And for one reason or another are not on my final ranking. Some big names on there, certainly. Some players that are trending upwards. We check back in a couple months. I'll do an update. A lot of these players might be on there. There are others that contract is a big factor. Someone like Juan Soto, he's the only one I'm going to call out because when you get paid over $700 million, that's a big difference. And unless you are a player, who we will certainly talk about toward the end, that is generating a ton of not only on the field value, but off the field value for that $700 million, just not many teams can take that on. And so Juan Soto, I don't really think can get traded because there's almost no teams that can take on that contract. So that's why he's off the list. Other players, there are some injured players on here that if they're healthy, they'll get back on there. There are some impending free agents, someone like Jazz Chisholm. He's a free agent next year. That drops his value. So lots of reasons why these players didn't get selected, but also a lot of really good players on this list. Just didn't quite make the cut. So those are the honorable mentions, guys who didn't make the cut. A lot of good players on that list. Now let's get into the actual rankings. And for this update, I had to adjust it to 75 players that I have ranked. I only did 50 last year. I'm going to jump it up to 75. I think there's just too many good players that I had to expand it to 75. So we're going to rank 75 players. More importantly, and I didn't talk about this in the rules, we are only ranking MLB players. So they have to have made their MLB debut. A lot of really good minor league prospects. A lot of them I'm excited for. I just don't spend enough time watching minor league baseball. I know the top guys, but it's kind of hard to fit them in with major league guys we know. Minor leaguers definitely play a role in trades. We're just not considering them. So these are the top 75 MLB players ranked. And so we're going to go 75 to 1. They're going to be in tiers like always. So let's start off with the first group. And I'm going to call this group, casual fans don't really know how good you are. And I've got three guys in this group. Number 75, Stephen Kwan, 74, Brendan Donovan, and 73, Shea Langoliers. Stephen Kwan, probably the biggest name on this group. But still, I think these three guys, the casual fan might not recognize them. I think Brendan Donovan is a good example. Really good player. He was actually just traded, and he was traded for a decent amount. But he's not one that's, going to be your star player. He's just going to quietly put up, 3 to 4 win seasons. And those are valuable players. They're not going to be the flashiest, but they're valuable. Shea Langoliers is the only one that, depending on how he plays this year and the next couple of years, you could consider him one of the best catchers in baseball. He is, I think, trending that way. Still, not a lot of fans probably know his name, so I think he still fits into this group. Really good players, don't get a lot of fanfare, maybe aren't the stars of their team, but they're valuable. And so they sneak on at the end of this list. Group U, quality players despite the age and the contract. And I've also got 3 players in this group. Matt Olson at 72, Byron Buxton at 71, and William Contreras at number 70. Now, these are a few older players, and I get William Contreras isn't that old, but for a catcher, he's getting a little bit older. But they're still good players, and they're still putting up production. Byron Buxton is always going to be one that will fall a little bit just because he can't fully stay healthy. But all 3 good players, you could argue 3 of the better players in the league, they're getting older, they have a bigger contract, but they're too good to fall completely off. So I wanted to put them towards the end of these rankings. Still good players, still have value in my opinion. Group T, speaking of good players that are getting older, I've got former stars still holding on. And you could call these guys 4 superstars. I've got Corey Seager at 69, Mookie Betts at 68, Bryce Harper at 67, and Trey Turner at 66. Just like the last group, 4 really good players. I think the difference is these 4 have been stars/superstars. I mean, we've got former MVPs in this group. Still good. They all have $300 million contracts, so you're paying for it. But I think they still provide enough, and I still think they have enough, maybe extra value to their team that they're still on this list. They're not bad enough. They don't have as bad of a contract that any of these teams would just dump them. So as of right now, they stay on the list. They will all 4 at some point probably soon drop off, but still, they still provide enough value. They're still good players in their own right, despite their age, despite their contract. And the name recognition is there. So these are 4 players that you're definitely going to know, even if you're a casual baseball fan. Group S. I'm going to call this group, I think something's there. I'm not really sure if these guys are going to be great or not. So we're going to kind of lump them together. 65, I have Cedane Rafaela. Number 64, newcomer Kyle Stowers. And number 63, Riley Green. So 3 pretty different players. And I didn't have Kyle Stowers last time. I talked about him in the last update. That I really liked what I've seen. Unfortunately, he got hurt to start this year. So I do want to see another full year of him being a really good player before I start to move him even further. And then Raphael and Riley Green are complete opposites. And I do think something's there. I do think these are good baseball players, but there's also enough that I'm kind of concerned. And in Raphael's case, it's just, can he hit? Really at all? Like, I just want 750 OPS from Raphael. If I can get that, he's going to be a really good player. He's that elite defensively all across the diamond. Good base runner, great defender. He just needs to be able to hit. And I'm starting to get concerned that won't fully come. But even if it doesn't, still a good player. And then Riley Green went kind of all out for the 3 true outcome type of player. And it kind of worked. Hit a lot of home runs. Had a decent year last year. But he also had a lot of strikeouts. I think he had over 200. I don't know if I really want that type of player, if that's what he's going to be. If he's going to turn into this, 35 to 40 homer player, 200 plus strikeouts. I've seen enough of those players that they're good players. They're valuable, but that's maybe not what I wanted Riley Green to be. And he's still young. I still want to see, but he did have to drop in these rankings because I am a little concerned that's just what he's going to end up being. Group R, one of the biggest groups we have, and these are just pitchers that you want. Good quality pitchers are just always in need in the MLB. So I've got a lot of them in this group. Varying in age, varying in maybe ability and where they're trending, but just all pitchers that you'd want. Number 62, Mackenzie Gore. Number 61, Framber Valdez. Number 60, Andrew Abbott. Number 59, newcomer Jose Soriano. We'll talk more about him in a little bit. Number 58, Gavin Williams. number 57, Freddie Peralta, and 56, George Kirby. All good pitchers. And as I said, all at kind of varying degrees of where they're at in their career. Someone like a Framber Valdez has been around. I almost left him off just based on how last year ended. He went out on the free market. Kind of seemed like anybody had the chance to get him, and he didn't really have a lot of interest. But I do think he's a good pitcher, so I'm going to leave him on at least for now. Then you've got guys like George Kirby, guys like Freddie Peralta, just quality pitchers who have shown it for the last few years, are one of the better pitchers in the league. Again, as the group says, you just want those type of pitchers, even if maybe they don't have the ceiling or maybe struggle to reach that ceiling always. I think Kirby and Peralta are good examples of that. Just really good pitchers, and any given night they could be elite pitchers. I want to shout out Jose Soriano, who, as I said, just joined these rankings. And by just joined, I mean literally right before this video, I put him in this group. I hesitate to overreact in these rankings, and it's very hard to do. There's going to be a couple guys that I will shout out towards the end of this that I was way overreacting, I think probably in the first video. But Jose Soriano is starting to put together what could be a really good season. And he's not necessarily came out of nowhere. He's been a solid innings eater for the Angels. But this year he's just improved way more than I could have thought of. And I want to throw him on there. Could be that we look at these in this next update. He's kind of fell back down to earth. But I think right now, if we're trying to make a snapshot of these trade value rankings, I think Jose Soriano deserves to be on here. So that's maybe an overreaction. I do like to see sustained success for these trade value rankings. It's a good thing if you're looking at some of the honorable mentions. Say these are good players and some of the good young players that didn't quite make the list. I want to see you prove you can be a great MLB player. And Jose Soriano right now is doing that. Group Q, the new wave of hitters. Bunch of young hitters in this group. We've got number 55, Carter Jensen. Number 54, Sal Stewart. 53, Luke Keeschel. 52, Cam Smith. And 51, reigning Rookie of the Year, Drake Baldwin. Bunch of young hitters. Drake Baldwin, I get, is 25. Maybe not the youngest for a catcher, but did just win Rookie of the Year. And a lot of guys that have prospect pedigree and are starting to show, like, that's not just pedigree. They are actually starting to show they are going to be good major leaguers. And I think that's the difference between this group and some of the guys I left off. As I just said with the pitchers, I do want to see it. And if you are a big time prospect and you come up and you struggle for a little bit, I'm going to have to take you off for a while until you actually prove you can do it. Because we've seen time and time again, these elite prospects you think are going to be really good, then they come into the majors and they struggle. And you say, well, they've got time. It's new. They're still young. And yet they never really recover. And so some of these guys, I had to leave off the list. Again, you can go back to the honorable mentions. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. But these five hitters, I don't want to say they've just hit the ground running. They have struggled maybe a little bit, but they've proven that they are good MLB hitters. I think someone like a Carter Jensen is a good example. As a catcher, he's come out and shown he's one of the better hitting catchers already. And I know he's not primarily playing catcher. Salvador Perez is still there, kind of sharing. But someone like him, someone like Drake Baldwin, they've shown pretty much immediately they're going to be really good hitters in this league. And because of that, that's valuable. Just where they're at in their age, contract, where they're at in their career. Then Group P, before we get to the new wave of pitchers, I'm going to fit in the only impending free agent, and this is the Tarek Skubal group. So Tarek Skubal is going to be number 50. And this is where we have to have the conversation. Where does Skubal fit in with this group? Because he is an impending free agent. Somebody, if they trade him this year, which is a big if, don't know if Detroit is going to trade him this deadline. But if they do, they're going to want a lot because Skubal is probably the best pitcher in the league. You could argue Paul Skeens, you could argue Crochet, others. But I would probably pick Skubal just based on his track record. He's still only 29 years old. It's not like he's in his mid-30s. He's still in his prime. So you're going to have to trade a lot for him to get him this deadline if they trade him. And just hypothetically speaking, we'll say he's going to get traded. Again, I don't know if Detroit would really do it at this point. But for these rankings, let's say he does. You would have to give up a lot. And a lot in the sense of Usually players that are going to be free agents don't get traded for a lot. And yet Skubal is different. And so this is where I had to kind of fit him in. Where do you put him and what would you give up to get him for only a guaranteed couple months and only a guaranteed one playoff run? So this is kind of where I landed. You would have to give up a lot. You would have to give up maybe intriguing young hitter. You'd have to give up a quality pitcher. Some of the guys that I just mentioned. Those are good pitchers. Skubal, though, is just way better than all those pitchers I just named. And so in order to get him, you have to give up players that are under contract for a few more years than Skubal in order to get him. That is the difference between the ability. Now, this is where I fit him in because this next group that we're going to talk about is the new wave of pitchers. And it's all the young, really intriguing pitchers. That is probably where I draw the line. Because if you have another really intriguing player and another really intriguing pitcher in particular, who's a lot younger and could grow into, probably not Skubal, realistically, but could grow into an elite pitcher, I think that's probably where you draw the line. So Skubal's going to fit in here at 50. And then we're going to jump into Group O, the new wave of pitchers. This is where I have three young guys. I have number 49, Connolly Early, number 48, Chase Burns, and number 47, Cam Schlittler. All three of these teams would probably want Skubal. Maybe not the Reds, just based on where they're at. But the Yankees, Red Sox certainly would want Skubal. And they would want to trade for Skubal if they could guarantee they could sign him long-term. And if they could work out a deal, and if they said, hey, we're going to trade for Skubal, we're going to sign him long-term, then yes, Skubal would rise up these rankings. Yankees, Red Sox, they would gladly trade Schlittler Early, as good and exciting as they are, for Skubal. But because there is no guarantee you sign him long-term, I think the Yankees and Red Sox would be like, you know what? We would love Skubal, but these couple guys would hurt to lose. I mean, Schlittler, we saw last year in his kind of postseason run, there's something there, and he's kind of kept up with it early on in this season. Same thing with Early. Big left-handed pitchers don't come on trees. I mean, I know Skubal is certainly one of them. Early could be one of those. And again, I'm not saying any of these guys get close to Skubal, but even if they're 75%, I don't think they give these guys up for Skubal. And then Chase Burns. Reds are not in a position to trade for Skubal, but you don't trade a number 2 overall pick this early, especially one that shows a lot of potential. We need to see it, but in all these guys' cases, the sky is the limit. Can they get there is the question, but three really intriguing pitchers. Group N, age and contracts make it harder. And these are three really good players. The age and the contract, though, do make it hard. Number 46, I have Will Smith. 45, Francisco Lindor. And 44, Ketel Marte. To me, these three players are a little bit different than the past superstars that we talked a few groups ago. I do think these are still three of the better players in the league. Whereas guys like Bryce Harper, guys like Trey Turner and Mookie Betts that we talked about, I don't know if they're quite there anymore. Maybe in name recognition, but I wouldn't put them up in the top group. These three, you could argue, are still there. Will Smith, I still think, is one of the best catchers in the league. Ketel Marte, a lot of people's best second baseman in the league. Francisco Lindor, still a great shortstop. So all three really good players. They are in their early 30s. They're still young enough that I still think they're up here, but are in their early 30s. They are being paid a lot. Lindor's case, over $300 million. But to me, they're just too good, too valuable still that it does make it harder, but they're too good that I can't drop them any further. We're just as good as they are, and you would still get a few good years out of them. So they still fit kind of in this middle area of these rankings. Group M, quality starters and elite relievers. And really just an elite reliever. Just one. You know who it is. Number 43, Logan Gilbert. 42, Logan Webb. 41, Hunter Brown. Number 40, Mason Miller. And number 39, Max Fried. This is almost a step up from the quality pitchers that we just talked about. These guys have shown it a little bit more consistently. These guys have been able to consistently be either an ace pitcher or an ace adjacent pitcher. However you want to define ace. If you think these guys are aces, maybe ace adjacent. If you're one of those that maybe says there's only like 5 or 6 ace pitchers at any given time. But all of these guys can be number one starters. And I've proven that over at least some time. Are they as good as the elite of the elite? No. Could they be? Yes, at times they could. But I would have them one tier below. And then obviously there's Mason Miller. And I debated where I wanted to put Mason Miller because what he's doing this year is ridiculous. I mean, it is one of the better starts to a reliever season we've ever seen. The first question is, can he continue it? Can he sustain this level of just dominance? If the answer is yes, that's a very valuable player. And just this season alone would make Mason Miller pretty high up in these rankings because having an elite reliever is valuable. However, I do think there is a limit to how high I can put a reliever in these trade value rankings. And that is just basically because there is a lot of variability in reliever seasons. As good as Mason Miller is, and right now he's proving that the Padres made a good deal despite trading Leo DeVries, relievers just have a lot of variability. One season they could be elite, another season not so much. And unless you are one of the best ever, I'm talking Mariano, I'm talking Trevor Hoffman, I'm talking others who consistently year over year were great, you do see a lot of ups and downs for closers and elite bullpen pitchers. And I'm not saying that's necessarily Mason Miller. He could be in that elite of the elite group, but there's just too much variability that relievers to me are capped in where they could be. If Mason Miller continues and we redo these rankings towards the trade deadline, yeah, I'll probably push him up a little bit higher. But I do think there's unfortunately kind of a ceiling to where he ends up as dominant as he is. Then we get to Group L. I'm going to call this group always underrated. We probably just don't talk about these guys enough. And in some of these cases, they're playing for Olympic teams. They're playing for World Baseball Classic teams, and we still don't talk about them enough. Number 38, I have CJ Abrams. 37, Jeremy Pena. 36, Geraldo Perdomo. 35, Bryce Terang. And number 34, Zach Neto. 5, what I'm noticing now is 5 really good middle infielders. Didn't necessarily do that on purpose, but 5 really good middle infielders. CJ Abrams, we might be seeing the breakout season we've been waiting for. He's still only 25, had a great start to the season. If he continues, then I might even bump him up even further because I've been waiting for this, but been a kind of rough start to his career. I think we're finally seeing him turn into the elite player we thought he could be. He's been a good player, but I think he could be an elite player. Geraldo Perdomo is a perfect example of this category. He's just one of the better players in the MLB, and yet not enough people talk about him. And he probably just gets brought up in the underrated player discussions, and yet he still just produces every single year. Bryce Terang, I mean, he was on Team USA. He started a lot of games, and still probably a lot of people don't know him. But he's a very good second baseman. You could argue he's the best second baseman up there with Ketel Marte and others. He's a really good player. He's only 26 years old, and yet we just don't talk about him enough. So he fits in this. And then I've been banging the drum on Zach Neto for a long time. He's on a bad Angels team. He's kind of got cast aside, but he's kind of the one player that has produced for them the last few years. And he's only 25 years old. He's only getting better. I think this could be one of the better players in the league. And I would argue he's already one of the better players in the league. And yet probably not a lot of people know his name. So he is underrated. All of these guys are underrated. All of these are good players. And all of them are still young. I mean, Jeremy Pena's 28. He's the oldest guy in this group. All these guys are still young, still good contracts, just underrated. We don't talk about them enough. Group K, these are the guys with all the tools. I mean, all the tools are there for these 4. Number 33, I have Wyatt Langford. 32, Jacob Mizorowski. 31, Pete Crow Armstrong. And number 30, Yuri Perez. This is the tools group. I mean, this is, if everything goes right, these are 4 elite players. The thing is, tools aren't always the thing across all sports, certainly in baseball as well. You can't just have tools. You actually have to be productive. And these guys have been productive. In stretches, all 4 of these guys, I would argue, have been elite. And you could argue, could arguably be top 10 trade value guys. Good example of this, Pete Crow Armstrong, who I said, the first time I did this, it was last trade deadline, as I mentioned. At that time, PCA looked like he was the next big thing. He looked like he was going to be an MVP candidate, still really young. Sky was the limit. He was going to have a 40-40 season, all of that. So I ranked him pretty high. And then he came crashing down to earth. And I felt partly responsible. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have put him as a top 10 trade value guy. But I think it was a good snapshot of that time. Cubs wouldn't have traded him for anything, probably. He did collapse in the second half. So he does fall pretty considerably in these rankings. But he's an example of a player that is elite and has elite tools. He just needs to put it together consistently. Jacob Mizorowski, perfect example of that on the mound. Elite stuff. I mean, best of the best if he can get it right. He just needs to prove it. And he needs to prove he can pitch and doesn't just have elite stuff. Same thing with Yuri Perez. He had Tommy John surgery, unfortunately, because when he came up, he looked like the next big elite pitcher. He did get hurt. He is coming back. I do want to see it consistently, but another one of these just elite stuff, has all the tools, can be a star pitcher. And then Wyatt Langford, we've been talking about him, been a top prospect, been solid for the Rangers, but he needs to show he can live up to the billing, live up to all the tools. I could see all four of these guys jump up, be top 10 players. If they don't, we got to start dropping them down, but they kind of fit in this fringe top 30. Like they're almost up there. I just want to see it for a little bit longer. Part of the reason they fell is because we've got some new guys. So Group J, the new guys, 3 top prospects that have debuted this year and all look like they're going to be great major leaguers. Number 29, I have JJ Weatherholt. Number 28, Kevin McGonigal. And number 27, former top prospect, probably still his top prospect. He hasn't graduated yet. Connor Griffin. 3, again, middle infield guys, 3 elite prospects. They've all, in their own way, kind of came in and shown at least that they're going to be really good major leaguers. Again, maybe production isn't necessarily there right away. I'm like Connor Griffin, maybe statistically it started slow. But I think all 3 are going to be great major leaguers. They've shown that in this limited time. Now, if they struggle, I'll drop them down. But if we're doing a snapshot of right now, their teams wouldn't trade these 3 for really anything else outside of like big time players. So I'm comfortable putting them in the top 30. Really young still, have to prove it, but they have the pedigree to back it up. Group I, these are the elite starters. So these are the starters that I have alluded to in past groups. These are starting to be some of the best of the best. And number 26, I have Christopher Sanchez. Number 25, Brian Wu. And number 24, Nolan McLean. These are 3 amazing pitchers, 3 elite pitchers. Sanchez has shown it the last couple of years. Brian Wu has shown it the last couple of years. And Nolan McLean, if he can continue to be a great pitcher throughout this year, he could rise even further because I think we have kind of one more tier of pitchers left. Nolan McLean is starting to trend that way. He's the youngest of this group. He already has had, World Baseball Classic experience, probably going to be on the Olympic team as well, all of that. And he's only getting better. So he's somebody that is going to continue to rise. Brian Wu, Christopher Sanchez, 2 elite pitchers. I mean, their teams aren't trading them probably for much. The only thing with pitchers, and I'll mention it now, I'll probably mention it in a little bit as well. Pitchers are just typically going to be a little bit lower than hitters just due to the risk because, knock on wood for all of these guys, they're 1 pitch away from being out for the year and being out like 16 to 18 months. That's just the reality of pitchers. So pitchers are a little bit riskier. That's why they drop down a little bit. But these are 3 of the best, highest value guys on the pitching side. Group H, we're starting to get to some of the best players in the league and some of the most valuable. These guys would be elite except for one thing. And number 23, I have Fernando Tatis Jr., number 22, Yordan Alvarez, and number 21, Kyle Tucker, who joins these rankings. Tatis would be a very valuable player. His contract is kind of rough, though. I mean, it's $330 million total. I said in the beginning, contracts don't matter as much in baseball because there is no salary cap. So the Padres could be fine with it. And teams are like, okay, yes, he's paid a lot, but he's a good player, still in his prime. It's worth it. It's just getting a little bit high for me that it's at least a conversation. Some teams, I think, would just rule it out. If he ever does get traded, it might be somewhat of a salary dump. So because of that, his value is a little bit lower than it should. If he was on a better contract, I think he'd be up a little higher. If he kind of struggles a little bit and starts to maybe continue on a little downward trajectory, then he might fall off completely. So kind of a weird spot for Tatis. I still put him up here. Might fall depending on how the next couple of years go. Yordan Alvarez, he is elite. And I've been saying this. He is, to me, a top 5 hitter in this league. Except for his sake, and why he's only 22, is he hasn't stayed healthy. I think he's been elite, been one of the best, if not the best hitter so far this year. We just haven't seen that for a while. He's struggled to stay healthy, and he's basically a DH. You can throw him in left field if you need to, but he's pretty much only a DH at this point, which not the end of the world if you're the best hitter in the league, but that is enough to lower your value a little bit. I mean, he's soon to be in his 30s, somewhat of a rough injury history, somewhat of a defensive liability or limited player. But just his hitting, just at the plate, he is maybe the best player outside of like Judge, Ohtani. I would argue Yordan Alvarez over almost anybody. And then Kyle Tucker, kind of a similar thing. We haven't seen elite Kyle Tucker for a little bit. He's been hurt. He wasn't on these rankings last time because he didn't have a long-term contract. Now he does. I still think he's one of the best players in the league. His contract is fine. I don't really put that in consideration. I just want to see him healthy. And he's another one. If he stays healthy, I might raise him a little bit higher. I just want to see it because it's been a little bit of time. Group G. I have some questions about this group. So I'm going to label it, are they young superstars or are they not? I've got three guys in this group. I have number 20, Jackson Merrill, number 19, James Wood, and number 18, Jackson Chourio. So this title that I came up with kind of sums up how I feel about these three. Because on the surface, and in a lot of these guys' career, you're like, yeah, these are three of the young superstars in the league. They've all played for a few years now, and they're still really young. And they look like kind of the faces of their team. They look like this new wave up with the guys that we'll mention towards the top. And yet, for all three of these guys, I'm a little hesitant now. Jackson Merrill had a down year last year. Still a good year, still a solid year, but nothing like we saw when he first debuted. Is he an elite player, one of the best young players in the league, or is he just a good player? There's nothing wrong with being a good player, but I don't know if I'd call him a superstar. I think he's got to prove that. And then James Wood at 19, he's got the tools, and this was another one. When I did these rankings last time, I put him in the top 10 because he looked like one of the elite young players, looked like he was heading towards like superstardom. However, I think there is enough concern on his profile and start of this year not helping his case that he is going to turn into one of these big power hitters. When he's clicking, he can do everything, but there's just going to be too much strikeouts, kind of limited defensively, and that's the player he's going to be. And as I mentioned for Riley Green, who I think is sort of similar, those players are good. You need somebody who can hit 40 home runs. But the difference between the good power hitters and the elite players in this league are you need to be able to do that while not sacrificing the rest of your game. And at this point, I don't know if James Wood is going to do that consistently. So there's still a lot of potential. He still can be a top 10 player in this league. That's why I have him still very high. But if we don't see that this year, I got to start dropping him down because I don't like where things are headed, despite him being a top 10 player when I last did these. And then Jackson Chourio to me is a little different. He's only 22, and it seems like he's been in the league forever. It's the benefit of debuting when he was 19 or 20 or however old he was. He's a good player. He's on a good contract. And if I'm a Brewers fan, I don't really have that much to complain about. But I do have a question because the first few years he's been in the league have all kind of been the same. And when you debut and you are playing at 20 and doing that, that's great. You're going to be in the top 10. Looks like he's one of the future superstars. Now, when we've seen kind of the same season, I'm left wondering, kind of similar to where Jackson Merrill is, where it's like, he's a good player. Nothing wrong with being a good player. But is he ever going to take a leap where he's the elite of the elite? And that's a very hard thing to do. There's very few elite players. I'm not saying Jackson Chourio won't get there, but that, I guess, trepidation is enough for me to drop him just a little bit. And we're going to start really, I guess, pulling hairs on like figuring out the difference between these guys. I do want to see a very elite season from Chourio first. And not an elite season when you're a 20-year-old. I mean an elite season just in general, regardless of how old you are. Group F, these players just mean more to us. They probably don't deserve maybe to be up this high based on a few different things, but they're just too valuable to their team. Number 17, Jose Ramirez, and number 16, Cal Raleigh. Two different players based on where they're at in their career, and because of a few different things, they probably don't deserve to be up here. But like I said, they're just too valuable. They're one of those players that the team probably values them way higher than maybe they should, and really for good reason. Jose Ramirez, he is really the second oldest player, I think, in the top like 30 or 40. Aaron Judge, spoiler alert, he's the other one. But Jose Ramirez is the only one that's even close to Aaron Judge. He's already 33. So yes, should he be as valuable as some of these other players? Maybe not. But he's so good and really is showing no signs of slowing down that he probably just means more to Cleveland than other players. I think he's a good example of this. Cal Raleigh, another good example, is a catcher who's going to be 30 pretty soon. The 16th most valuable player in the league. Probably not. Because again, realistically, is he going to play at an elite level for 5 more years? Realistically not. So guys like Churio, James Wood, Jackson Merrill, you could argue are more valuable. But for both Cal and Jose Ramirez, they just mean more to their team, not just on the field, but off the field. Cal is a good example of that. If he has a really bad season comparative to what he did last year, then yes, maybe we can drop them. But when you have a catcher who literally just did a season we've never seen before, hit 60 home runs, and just means way more to their team than maybe anybody in the league, you're going to be pretty high up in the rankings. And even if it's maybe a short stay in the top 20 for Cal, I think he deserves to be up there. We'll see how long he lasts, but to me, one of the more valuable players on the field and off the field in the league. Group E, now we're getting to some of the best of the best. These guys are just too good. These guys are just too young to give up on. Number 15, Elly De La Cruz. Number 14, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Number 13, Garrett Crochet. And number 12, Gunnar Henderson. 4 elite players. I don't have to say how good they are. 4 still young players. Crochet and Yamamoto, still only 27. That is young for a pitcher. Elly De La Cruz, Gunnar Henderson, still under 25. They've proven it for at least a few years now. They're still young enough that they may just be entering their prime now. It's pretty self-explanatory. These guys are too good, too young to give up on now. That's pretty much it. We're pulling hairs again when we're talking about the best of the best from maybe these guys who don't reach the top 10, but I don't think it's anything that they're doing wrong. I think just there's a lot of elite players in this league. Number 11, Group D. This is where I have Aaron Judge, and Aaron Judge is going to go 11. It's him and Skubal that I have these one player categories for, and that's because those two are just really in a situation of themselves. Skubal is an elite pitcher who is an impending free agent, and Judge is a 34-year-old with an injury history, we'll just call it that, who might be the best hitter we've ever seen. And because of that, the Yankees aren't going to trade him. And if they did, they could get a ton for him. Would it make sense for a team to trade for him and give up what it would take to get him as a 34-year-old? Probably not. But similar to Cal, similar to Jose Ramirez, sometimes there are just players that mean more and have bigger value outside of the maybe realistic outcomes that they could get. Again, 34-year-old outfielder with an injury history. I don't care how good you are. That's kind of a risky thing to trade for. And yet Judge is so good. I think he's still fringe top 10. I don't know if these 10 guys left, I would trade for Aaron Judge. But that's just, I don't know. It just shows how good he is. So we're going to put him 11, right below the best of the best. And so let's get to the top 10. Group C, the young superstars. Number 10, Junior Caminero. Number 9, Nick Kurtz. And number 8, Roman Anthony. All guys who have just recently debuted, and all 3 have been all-star level elite just from the beginning. Caminero, 40 plus home runs last year. Nick Kurtz, who I think just debuted shortly before I did these rankings this last time, enough that I was able to fit him in. And I said, if he continues this kind of crazy run, we're going to push him up even further. And he did that. He looks like he's one of the best hitters already, despite only being 23. He gets up into the top 10. And then Roman Anthony, former top prospect, is pretty much living up to that. He was on Team USA, already having a great start to his career, and he's only 22. He is going to be a top 10 trade value, I think, for a while. I don't see him slowing down. And then Group B, second to last group, these are the faces of the franchise. So they have been doing it for a little bit, and yet they're still young. They are still a big part of their organizations. Number 7, Ronald Acuna Jr. Number 6, Julio Rodriguez. Number 5, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And number 4, Corbin Carroll. As I said, these are the best of the best. These are 4 of the best. I still think you can call them young players. Ronald Acuna Jr. is the oldest now at 28. They're still young. They're still just hitting their prime, despite being elite players, I think, for a few years now. That's how good they are. They are the faces of their franchise. They have been faces of their franchise for a long time, and they're elite. Contracts, I don't care about. They are all signed to long-term deals now at this point. If we're trying to pick between them, Ronald Acuna has the injury history. He is now 28. I think he falls last in this group. In terms of who I think is going to grow the most, I think Corbin Carroll. He's only 25. He has the makeup and the profile to be a really good player for a long time, and I still think he gets better. Vlad and Julio, it's tough. We've seen Vlad be a little bit more consistent. I have him over Julio, but these four players, best of the best faces of the franchise. And then finally, Group A, these are the completely untouchable players, and you know who the three are. Number 3, we have Paul Skeens. Number 2, Bobby Witt Jr. And number 1, Shohei Ohtani, who is still the number 1 trade value guy in these rankings. We'll get to him in a second, but Paul Skeens, there's no question. He's the best pitcher, at least in terms of value. I said Skubal could be, you'd argue Crochet, a couple others. But in terms of value, it's Paul Skeens. He's still only 24. He's had maybe the best start to a career ever for a pitcher. He's only third in this group because, as I said, pitchers just inherently are going to be a little bit lower than hitters, a little bit more of a risk. But he's still one of the best players and just most valuable players in the league. Bobby Witt Jr. has shown he is not only one of the best shortstops, he's just one of the best players in general, putting up insane numbers, still only 26, and I think he's just going to get better. I do think he's going to win an MVP at some point and just solidify himself as one of the best in the game. And then Shohei, number 1. I mentioned in the beginning, Juan Soto, he's not ranked here, even though he also has a $700 million contract. And I said that, yes, contracts don't matter as much. How much? Because there's not a salary cap. Except for when it gets so high. And someone like a Juan Soto, $700 million contract, not a lot of teams can afford that. And because of that, I don't think Juan Soto has a lot of trade value. I think he's probably stuck on the Mets. If he gets traded, it's just to a couple other teams. Ohtani is different, though, because as we talked about when he was going to get signed, $700 million is a lot of money. But just with all the off-the-field stuff, teams can make that back. And I would bet if every team had the chance to trade for him, and if they had a chance to be like, hey, we will take on this contract, we will take on Ohtani, I think all 29 other teams do that. Regardless if they usually spend that much or not, that's how much Ohtani is valuable. So he's clearly the most valuable player for franchises. He's clearly the most valuable player to the business side of their operations. I do think he is still the number 1 value player in the MLB, regardless of all that. The contract, as I said, not really a factor. He is 31. I'm going to call that out because I don't think he will be number 1 for that much longer. We'll see how long he can keep this up. But until he stops being one of the best hitters and until he stops showing he's one of the best pitchers, he's going to be number 1. He's 31. We'll see how long that lasts, but there's no debate. As long as you can get past the contract stuff, he is clearly the number 1 trade value guy right now. So Ohtani takes the reins. Second update in a row. Ohtani still number 1. Bobby Witt still number 2. Paul Skeens 3 as the top 3 trade value guys. So that's all 75 players in my MLB Trade Value Rankings. It's a fun exercise to do. As I said, I'll be updating these probably a couple times a year. I'll do another update towards the trade deadline later this summer. I've also been doing it in the NBA. I'll be doing an NBA updates later this summer as well. So lots of fun stuff. It's a fun exercise to go through. If you have any thoughts, again, we're going to keep these respectful, but if you have thoughts, you have agreements, disagreements on these rankings, let me know down in the comments. If you like this video, if you want to see more like it, make sure to like, subscribe. Stay tuned for a bunch of other videos like this. Stay tuned for future updates. And with that, we will see you later this summer for the next update to the MLB Trade Value Rankings.